Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canteen Cup. My name is Scott, and it is cold this morning. We had a heavy frost last night. It is currently about 19 degrees. That's probably a record for here in Georgia for this time of year. Hey, what you're seeing here is a little bit of frost heave, and just wanted to demonstrate how cold it is. And I'm going to reverse the screen around a little bit and talk about cold weather operations. So I'll be right back. All right, everybody, I'm back. Let me get my glove back on because it is cold. Excuse me. All right, here we go. All right, everybody, I'm back. I'll do a little editing on that other stuff, but baby, it's cold outside. It's 19 degrees, and that's cold for Georgia, and that's really cold for a lot of places in the country. Last night when I was taking the dogs out for a walk, it was 25 degrees, but with the wind chill, we had a pretty gusty winds last night. It was down to 15, 11, so it's cold. So I wanted to take a little time and talk about cold weather protection or cold weather operations. It's very important. There's a lot that goes into that. One of my additional duties when I was in the Army, I was what was called a field sanitation NCO, and that entailed a lot of different things. But one of it was I was responsible for cold weather injury prevention and for hot weather injury prevention for the company I was in. I've said in other videos and other places that I've operated everywhere from a desert climate to a subtropical to a subalpine. And that means I've been from very, very hot to very, very cold. And Georgia has elements of all those except for desert, because Georgia's almost always humid. So, but in talking about cold weather, I wanted to give you some pointers and discuss how to prevent cold weather injuries. I'm not going to go into the cold weather injuries. Frostbite, frost nip, immersion foot are three that happen in cold weather, and you can Google those and find those. But really, what I want to talk about is prevention. As you can see, I am bundled up, and I want to talk a little bit about that and talk about why I do what I do. As you can see, inside my hood, I've got a beanie, and I've got my hood up. In cold weather such as this, you want to retain body heat, and you can lose up to a third of your core temperature through your head and neck. So when it gets real cold, you need to consider using a cap, a hood, and or a scarf. If you don't like getting your little cheekies cold, you can get one of those face masks. I've only worn them when it's gotten really, really, really cold, much colder than this. Because I'm kind of hot-blooded anyhow. I heat up pretty rapidly. But you want to keep the back of your neck and your head warm, and what that'll do is keep the rest of your body warm. The adage is, if your feet are cold, put on a hat, and there's truth to that. So before I go on, let's talk about the physical or physiological aspects of cold and how your body works. Your body's pretty smart, and it realizes that if the brain dies, you die, and it realizes that if the heart dies, you die. And so through evolution or design by creation, however you want to, put that, your body's first priority is to keep your head and your what they call your core, which is your central main body here, warm. And so the blood vessels that go to your head are unrestricted. So that means you're always getting full flow to your head all the time. That's why you can lose up to a third, because the blood flow to your head doesn't stop. For the rest of your body, for your what they call your extremities, namely your arms and your legs, they have a device called vasoconstriction. And what that does, or vasoconstriction, what that means is your body has the ability to reduce the size of those veins to restrict blood flow. So how does that play with maybe it's cold outside? Well, if your core temperature starts to cool, your body says, uh-oh, we've got to keep the temperature up in our core. So what it does is it starts to restrict the blood flow to your arms and your legs, feet and hands. And that's why your feet get cold first, typically. And that's why your hands get cold. So if you're not maintaining a good central core temperature, you start to constrict the blood vessels in your extremities, and they start to get cold. As this continues, your body will continue to try to maintain core temperature, but if it cannot, it'll continue to constrict the blood vessels, and then that allows, what that means is that less heat is getting to your arms and your legs, and then frostnip and frostbite enter into the picture because your hands are no longer as warm as your core, and it's more susceptible to a cold injury. So that's why the adage, if your feet are cold, put a hat on, is to help maintain your core temperature, which will help maintain good blood flow to your extremities. So that being said, how do I stay warm? And there's a couple adages to that. One is put on enough clothes. I've got 4 layers on here. I don't have any on my pants, but I've got, socks, and I've got these rubber booties that I wear around they're kind of like muck boots, but they're low cut. So they're kind of like muck loafers, but they work real well around here because I can slip them on and off when I got to walk the dog or go outside real quick. Anyhow, you need to maintain core temperature. So what I suggest is that you dress in layers. And I dress in layers here in Georgia because, all right, it's 19 degrees now, but probably by noon today or 1 o'clock today, it'll be up to 50 degrees, which will feel quite balmy after this morning. And so I dress in layers. I have a base layer. I have a long sleeve t-shirt, followed by a flannel shirt, followed by one of those puffy shirts I got from Sam's, Eddie Bauer. It's pretty cheap, but it easily fits under stuff. And then I've got, see if I can get the zipper. This is, there's the puffy thing, and then this has also got an insulated layer. So I've got 4 layers, and what will happen is if I'm out today, I have to go out and do some work today. As I get warm, I'll start shedding these layers. And what I may do is I may take my jacket off, and then take the puffy layer off and put the jacket back on, and kind of like that. So you want to kind of maintain a steady temperature. One thing you want to avoid is getting damp or wet. Now this is where the adage comes in when people say, oh, well, cotton kills. No, cotton doesn't kill, the operator kills. And I've been in all these conditions wearing cotton, and I'm still here. The secret is don't let it get wet. And if you let it get wet, then you need to find a couple ways of drying it out. So that's why you dress in layers. You don't, if I start getting hot, I take a layer off so I don't sweat as much. You always perspire, but I don't sweat as much, and then I allow my inner layers to dry out because they're now exposed to the outside air. Same thing with your socks. I mentioned immersion foot before, and immersion foot is caused by prolonged exposure to damp or wet conditions. So what that means is change your socks. Now, if I'm working around the farm today, I may not change my socks 3 times. I'll go out and work, and then when I come in, I may swap them out. But typically, just working around the house, I can get a full day out of a pair of socks before I have to change them out. But if I'm out hiking, hunting, operating, whatever you want to call it, I'll change my socks a couple times a day because I'm using my feet more. I'm walking for a long distance, or I'm doing a lot of movement, and so I'll change them more just to keep a clean, dry pair. One of the things that happens with socks and your other clothes is as they get damp and as they get dirty, they mat down and they lose their insulating efficiency, which is why you want to keep them dry and clean as best you can. Now, if you're in the Army, you're out in the middle of the woods, keeping things dry and clean is not always easy, but you do the best you can. I have, when I used to backpack, we would stop at night. Sometimes we'd get a little fire going, and I would dry my clothes out. Same thing with your sleeping bags. For those of you that still do outdoor activities in the winter, is during the day, if you can, turn your sleeping bag inside out during the day when you're not using it, and let it dry and let that moisture escape, so you'll have a nice fluffy bag that'll warm up when you get into it at night. So keep yourself dry as you can. Keep yourself clean as you can. Adjust your layers. Take the time to stop, because if you don't, once your inner layers get damp, you don't have that insulating efficiency, and you're going to be cold. Same thing with your feet. Keep them dry. Most of the clothes I wear anymore is Carhartt brand, because I like them. I've been wearing Carhartt for 50 years. Carhartt is made of mostly cotton and polyester. I don't have an issue with that. Wool is nice, but wool is expensive. And here's a couple caveats about wool, because I have some wool, not as much as I used to have, but I have some wool. But the problem with wool is it's really not easy to take care of. It takes special washing, special drying. It's durable. Don't get me wrong, it's durable. But either you have to wash it like in cold water with Woolite, or you have to get it dry cleaned. It takes care. Just about all my Carhartt clothes, including my jackets and coats, when it's time to do a wash, I throw them in the washing machine with the rest of the clothes. And so they're easy to take care of. And if you're homesteading, if you're working your farm, then that's important, because you may be out on the farm. Like when I was out digging that hole, I got dirty. I got real dirty. And, I may have to go out again tomorrow and do the same job. So I don't have time to send something to the dry cleaners and get it back. I can come home, I can get my laundry room stripped down, throw it in the washing machine, and get that load going while I get the rest of me cleaned up. So, and that way the next day I can put the same clothes on and go back out and start again. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about that. But we have probably record cold this morning. I wanted to get out and tell you that you need to prepare, especially for us southern boys. If you haven't been exposed to this kind of cold very often, it's easy to get cold weather injuries, and they are hazardous. Cold can kill you. It can injure you, if you allow cold feet to turn into frost nip, to turn into frostbite, to turn into gangrene. you can lose toes, part of your foot. You can die from gangrene poisoning, and so it pays to be careful when you're out there. So everybody out there, stay safe and stay secure, and additionally, stay warm. We'll see you. All right, everyone, I thought I was done with the video, but I wanted to come back and report in. It's a little bit later on in the day. It's about noon here, and the temperature has climbed up to 40 degrees, may get as high as 45, maybe not. But what I wanted to show you is the difference in my attire. Right now, this is my base layer. This is what I had underneath my flannel shirt and my two jackets I had on this morning. And so right now, while wearing just this is a little bit cool for standing here, I was doing a little bit of work earlier and moving around a little bit more, and I got warm. And so I was trying to, emphasize that as the day warms up and as you warm up, as you get into more activity or whatever. I was out this morning doing some of my work, and then I had to go run some errands, and I was in and out of a truck. And while I was doing that, I was shedding layers because I was getting warm. And so to keep your homeostasis, your core body temperature without overheating, because you can overheat, you need to shed your layers. And also what that does is it helps keep your under layers dry, because the drier your layers are, the drier your clothing is, the warmer they will be. And that goes for wool too. Even though wool will keep you warm when wet, it won't keep you as warm as when it was dry. So you have to factor that in. Again, out here, I wear a lot of Carhartt clothes because they're durable. And when I get them dirty or I get them sweaty, I can just throw them in the washing machine. I don't have to do anything special. Let's see. I think that's really about it. Just the fact is that layering, being able to take on and remove clothes as needed is very important. It becomes more critical the more active you are. For example, if you're hiking or backpacking, that becomes critical because once you get those clothes wet, it's harder than when it is in the homestead. Here I can go throw them in the washer, throw them in the dryer, and get them ready to go again. But when you're out in the woods, you have to be able to either air them out, or you need to be able to build a fire and dry them out, or lay them in the sun. And if you are moving, that's harder to do. So those are things to consider. Be careful of cold weather injuries. Keep your feet dry. That's very important. Have clean socks, have dry socks, have foot powder. If you let your feet stay moist or damp for long periods of time, you get what's called immersion foot. And believe it or not, that could kill you, and it's painful. So you don't want that. Again, look that up. There's some Army manuals out there on cold weather operations. I think I've posted them other places. If I remember, I'll post it on here so you can look and see how the Army talks about cold weather. So anyhow, just a little adjunct to what I had this morning. Be mindful of cold weather. Be mindful when you're getting too cold. Be mindful when you're getting too hot, and adjust your clothing accordingly. So we'll see you all out there. Stay safe and stay secure.